Warning, this video contains minor spoils around some side quest content as well as footage of later sections of Avowed. No story spoils will be present. Please enjoy the video. This is going to be a different kind of video, but hear me out. I really like Avowed, and in my excitement and joy of playing through the newest game from Obsidian, I was really surprised to see the overall disinterest in Avowed I'm seeing online. It's being called boring, lacking content, not offering enough for a $70 experience, and what's most frustrating, being negatively compared to other AAA fantasy games. And it's really a shame because Avowed is a very specific type of game, but one that does a phenomenal job at what it sets out to do. So please, hear me out, and let me give a defense of Avowed. So what is Avowed? Avowed is a fantasy-based RPG created by Obsidian Entertainment, the creators of other role-playing titles such as Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Outer Worlds, Pillars of Eternity, and of course, Fallout New Vegas. Obsidian games tend to be very character-driven and filled with rich storytelling. These sort of games with stronger narratives often appeal to me, so when Obsidian revealed a new fantasy action RPG-styled open-world game a few years ago, I was immediately interested. Throughout the years, Avowed ended up going through a few major development changes as Obsidian was purchased by Microsoft. What was originally pitched as a mix of Skyrim and Destiny ended up being scaled down massively into a single-player experience with open zones instead of a seamless open world you could explore with friends. This large design shift was a result of new leadership on the project, now led by Kerry Patel, whose previous experience included working on the Pillars of Eternity games. While Avowed is her first full game as game director, the team reshuffled Avowed to be set within the Pillars of Eternity universe, and the world building feels right at home for this game. You are placed right in the world so seamlessly. There's no need to already be familiar with the world of Aora, as the game is a clever system that lets you learn terms while they're being spoken in dialogue. Press F to read what any highlighted word on screen is, to varying results. You play as an envoy to the Emperor of a faraway, powerful nation, and you've been sent to the Living Lands, an independent island that is currently undergoing a strange epidemic. It frames the large island as a new place for the player character to explore, but also lets the player experience the new terms, location, and its people in an authentic and believable way. Your first follower, Kai, also acts as a great guide early on to give you some context and explain the tensions throughout the Living Lands.
Come here for a better life and find a worse one. Wish I hadn't heard that before.
This guy sounds like Garrus from Mass Effect. Is this the same voice actor? I'm a f***ing gosh darn genius. It's the same voice actor. You Garrus at the very beginning of this game? 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 already. In addition to being the Emperor's envoy, you are also a godlike, one who has been touched by the gods and given special abilities. You also have a distinct facial pattern that everyone can recognize you as a godlike. And it wouldn't be a great Obsidian game if you didn't have a plethora of character creation options. Oh my god. He's shredded. This shift in scope to be more tightly presented in open zones over a large world leaves a lot of the Living Lands to be more densely packed with things and events to explore. Never do you feel that there's nothing to do in Avowed. Each zone is largely populated with various side quests, settlements, and a dedicated city per zone to explore. The art direction and style of Avowed is also amazing. The sheer quality and variety to me is also outstanding. In fact, all the footage you've seen so far has been exclusively just from the first zone. And don't let the smaller scope fool you. These zones are absolutely massive. Beautiful valleys, forests, and coasts for the first area, where later on you visit dark and gloomy swamps, vast deserts, and volcanic valleys surrounded by gorgeous mountains. Elden Ring, recent Zelda titles, and other modern open-world games have shown a decrease in the bland areas, or what I call buffer zones, in their large 100-hour-long games, but Avowed shows that you don't need large seamless fields of buffer zones to fill the gaps of points of interest. While valid world-building in its own right, the spots of nothingness often bloat these larger games with empty fields of little purpose. Doing everything in Avowed takes half the time these other large games demand, which is a welcome change in an otherwise tired game design. and Avowed does not waste your time. Want tangible rewards for your efforts? The loot system is very streamlined to just upgrade materials, crafting materials for your consumables, or gems to sell. But to me, the writing and how the game is defined by your story is the greatest reward the game can offer for you. There were so many instances of discovering an unmarked quest that would take multiple hours and would be just as riveting as any of the main quests that Avowed has to offer. The smallest choices in unmarked side quests, like this example where I let a cart of contraband weapons pass into the first city, have major impacts on major story quests, where here I found a note in the smuggler's hideout detailing me letting them go in that unmarked side quest, which helped me avoid conflict with the zone's big choice. The key feature of Avowed is the power of choice. Player choice is at the core of every system, every feature, and the crux of everything from minor side quests to how you play your character. I adore this. It's something that I think Obsidian games in general excels at. The game remembers a lot of what you do. You want to roleplay that used to have a fling with one of the game's antagonists? Go for it, and the game gives you multiple references to this initial choice through dialogue because you made it so. How you respond to different factions is remembered all throughout the game. Each zone leads up to a major choice that completely shapes your story, and your followers will not hesitate to tell you your thoughts on what actions you should take. The 4 followers you have all have different desires and personal issues to work through, which really does add to the writing in depth, and reminds me of followers in Mass Effect, for example. They will take part in dialogue and even bring up your actions when you talk to them in camp or when the whole party has a meeting as you venture from one zone to the next. Some of my choices in this game led to some real arguments breaking out, and it just felt so real. They aren't just blindly following you and what you do, they will voice when you do something they hate, and they will remember it. Even talking to your followers to get to know them better opens up some side quests for them, and also lets you do some training to increase some of your stats. Their presence makes you feel like you are not alone in this story. Choices also go beyond story and dialogue. Your character's build is based around different classes and skill points, all of which the game lets you reset during your playthrough at any point in time, just for the cost of some in-game gold. Think about how Final Fantasy XVI, for example, lets you reset your icon abilities at any time. It's the same concept, and one that I've seen other games do, but Avowed also doing it feels great, and really plays into those themes of choice. The other big aspect of Avowed is in its loadout system. You have 2 loadouts you can switch between rather quickly. One is sword and shield in one loadout, and a wizard wand and a grimoire in the other. How about a 2-handed great axe and dual-wielding flintlock pistols? The possibilities are endless, and experimentation is encouraged. Since the only real items in the game beyond armor and weapons are crafting materials for said armor and weapons, you are incentivized to switch out your loadout often and see what you like best, breaking down some loot to strengthen others. And combat, which we're getting to quite late in this video, is really fun and fluid. Switching loadouts during combat, dealing massive damage, parrying enemies, and also commanding your followers to take action all feels wonderful. Think back again to Mass Effect, on how you can control your followers' abilities by a little quick access wheel menu. This is definitely reaching, but the element of choice in the combat scenarios heightens the whole feeling of the game. You can go stealthy, you can go in loud, play defensive and long range, or quick and agile. All the weapons feel great. You have some standard stuff like stagger bars that when taken advantage of can cause major damage, and as a godlike, you do get special god powers that are unlocked, you guessed it, through your choices in the game. Again, no story spoils here, but that aspect is also one of much wonder and excitement. This is all topped off with that classic Obsidian humor in its writing. There are so many jokes and the way people react to your sarcastic or joking responses that just gets me every time. You can openly lie to NPCs, and it doesn't tell you if it will be a successful speech check or anything, it just says, lie, say this. Sometimes it works, other times they can see right through you, and it's always hilarious. So many moments in the game made me laugh quite a bit. A personal highlight for me was a specific side quest in the 3rd area of the game, where you are tasked with picking up some illegal drugs from someone, and based on my choices, I let my party convince me to try the drugs for a free acid trip, and then avoid the authorities and deliver the drugs back to the initial quest giver. Turns out the drugs are bogus, but when asked what the high was like, you get hit with a clever reference to Two Bears High-Fiving, which if you know is a New Vegas joke, a pretty deep one if that. This is just peak writing, and I wouldn't have had experienced this silly highlight for my personal playthrough if I did that quest any differently. It took about 5 different choices to line up to this moment, and I will never forget this. I literally pointed at my screen like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme when I saw Two Bears High-Fiving. So what is the deal with the reception that Avowed is getting? Well, for starters, people are negatively comparing it to other games like The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And honestly, I feel like that's an unfair assessment because those two games have completely different design philosophies. Bethesda is known for their atmospheric storytelling, which lets you be immersed in the world they are building, where Avowed lets you, the player, craft your narrative and the game reacts to you. I don't think one is objectively better than the other, but they achieve their narrative goals differently. In Avowed, you can't kill NPCs that aren't hostile. You can't pickpocket. NPCs don't walk around or have programmed walking cycles or schedules. They kind of just stand around. Enemy variety is also pretty stagnant, after you finish the first area at least, and the game gets a little bit easier as you progress further and further in. There are some things I think could be improved, but other things that are not the focus of Avowed and shouldn't be expected to be fixed or adjusted. The argument that the world feels less alive because there is less that you, the player, interact with through the gameplay, I think is irrelevant to Avowed, because Avowed shows in its interaction with the world through the narrative and through player choice first, with gameplay taking a second backseat. Just because it is different doesn't make it bad. Fantasy action RPGs should have the room to innovate and adapt to different game design. Most of the complaints of Avowed that I've seen have been about what the game isn't, versus appreciating what the game is. Skyrim is nearly 15 years old and has had a stranglehold on what people say the fantasy RPG genre should be, and while a great game in its own right, we need other games to explore what a good fantasy RPG can be. Every game also doesn't need to be hundreds of hours. It took me roughly 40 hours to almost 100% Avowed. But again, with player choice, Avowed really shines in experimentation and replayability. The fact that it is much shorter than other games in its genre is drawing some bad attention, especially for its $70 price tag. And ain't nobody paying $70 for Avowed when it's on Game Pass for $10 a month. I think Avowed is a fantastic game. It really champions the player in their freedom to shape their story. The game is gorgeous, immediately beginning with its fantastic title screen, and it really lets you experiment with multiple loadouts through really fun and fluid combat. The story is fantastic as well. The characters feel real and have great motivations, and so many moments in this game were unlike what I get in most games of this genre. Let me tell you, some of these choices you have to make in this game, I literally had to sit at my computer for like 10 minutes to really think out what I wanted to do. Not a lot of games do that for me. The game reacting and changing based on what I choose to do was also so wonderful to see unfold. And surely, you know, Avowed isn't the only game that does it, but it does it in such an awesome, in-depth way. So I hope this gives you some more insight into what Avowed is, instead of brushing it off for what Avowed isn't. Because the real power of Avowed is you, the player, and choices in the story that you make. And I really encourage everyone to give Avowed a try. You don't have to spend $70 on it. Do a Game Pass trial. I mean, sometimes if you haven't done it in a while, you can get like Game Pass for like $1. So for like a month, you can probably finish Avowed, honestly. And you can also play some other games before your trial's over. But anyway, thanks for watching and for getting this far. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments some of your favorite moments in Avowed, because as someone who only did one playthrough, I know I missed a lot of good stuff.
Thank you for your help, Godlike. Even if you didn't have a ladder.
That's something I hope never happens again.
I've got a few inches to spare if she changes her mind.
What the hell? What the heck?